just finished the remote duel YCS. Unfortunately got 34th, going 9-2 in Swiss. Just barely missing out on top cut, just because of tiebreakers. But I was really happy with how my deck performed, how it worked. So I figured I'd just go through it, talk about some of the ratios and why I played them. So 3 Ecclesia, 3 Moyi, 2 Taya, 3 Long Yuan, 3 Emergence, and the 1 Blackout for Swordsoul cards. I didn't play Summit and I didn't play a second Blackout because I felt like those cards were often poor to draw. They were just better cards. And I wanted to optimize my hands as much as possible, and I just didn't feel like they were necessary enough to win. I felt like Summit just never came up that I needed it to win games. The second Blackout as well, I just didn't think was really worth it. I would still do that. Those cards did not come up for me really, so I was really happy with this. Tenyis, 3 Ashina, 2 Vishda, 2 Adara, the 1 Shtana. I'm gonna go over all that in a second. With 2 Heavenly, Dragon Circle, a single Vessel. So this is kind of Tenyi engine. Really big on these 2-ofs because drawing multiples of these cards is just terrible. You're kind of just starting with 1 less card most of the time. If you draw 2 Vishda or 2 Adara, you're basically just never using the second one for the most part. Like maybe you'll pitch it off Long Yuan, but there's a lot of other cards that you also want to pitch off Long Yuan that you can draw multiples of, like all these Swordsouls. So I really liked 2 to optimize my hands, to try to draw 5 different cards because I wanted to be able to use every card in my hand. I think that's really important in a deck like this. Same reason as this. Over the third, I'd play the 1 Vessel. I feel like it's a card that's very high variance, and cards like that I think are very good at 1 because they kind of function sort of like bombs. Where it's like you don't want to introduce too many of them in your deck to make it inconsistent, but having that 1 copy kind of gives you the chance to get lucky with it, and you need to get lucky to win tournaments. So I figure when playing a big tournament like a YCS, rather than just playing like a regional or playing online, it's good to play these kind of one-of inconsistent cards that can potentially be very impactful. I only drew Vessel once actually during the whole tournament, and it was a brick. So, but it was really good in testing. So I mean, I would still play it, I believe. And of course the 1 Protos came up a few times. I think that the only attribute I ever called with it all during Swiss was Dark. Blind Darked twice, and both times it was against Invoke Dogmatica, which is very good because then they can't DP. And I also think I used it another time to out a Phoenix Enforcer. And then flex spots, I played 2 Droll and 2 Ash. Similar reasoning. Drawing multiples is very, very bad. And they're the types of cards that you don't need to draw them to win. You do sometimes sort of thing, but your engine cards are the cards that you need to draw to actually net you wins in games. So your non-engine cards are meant to just support that, and it kind of defeats the purpose a lot of the time if you're drawing multiples of the same hard once per turn card. So I definitely just enjoy 2-ofs of these. It was very good. Droll in the main was amazing. I figured a lot of people would be playing this deck. It's the most played deck of the format, and I needed a reason that my build is able to do better than all the other people playing this deck, and I think Droll is a good way to do that. It gives me the ability to steal more free wins against Birds and Drytron, as well as many other decks. I mean, it can just win games, and I think that a lot of Swordsoul players have been doing things like where they're playing multiple circles and multiple vessels, up to 3 of each in their decks, and when they're doing that, Droll becomes very good against them as well, and then at that point it's just pretty solid against every single deck of the format. And even in a standard Swordsoul build like this, if you start with like Desires or Emergence and you get hit with a Droll, it can really, really hurt. It turns off the Moyi draw and the Chijiao search, so you kind of get 2 cards for 1. So Droll's a very powerful card. Definitely really happy with it in the main. And 3 Infinite Impermanence. If you can draw multiples of them, and they're still good. This card's just so insane. It's just always good to draw. You can draw it as the 6th card. You can draw it off Desires. It's great opening it. It's good going first, good going second. So 100% 3 of that. I played 2 Forbidden Chalice, and over the 3rd Chalice I played 1 Droplet. Same reasoning as Vessel. This card's kind of more inconsistent. But sometimes it can just be a bomb and just win you games. So playing as that one of, again, it gives you that chance to get lucky when you're trying to win a tournament and you need to get lucky, rather than just playing a deck that's straight consistency. But also, I'm playing a more, I don't make my deck too inconsistent by playing multiples. Yeah, Droplet, it was fine. I think every time I drew it, it basically just functioned as a chalice. There was round 1, though. It was really nice to negate a Yazi that my opponent made in the mirror match, which chalice would not have been able to touch. Other than that, yeah, I never dropleted into a combo board, but I drew it a couple times, and I just would activate an emergence or desires and then chain it to negate something. Sending the spell. So yeah, and 3 desires. Spot agreed. Round out 40 cards even. I think that a lot of people are playing more cards. A lot of people are 43 and even 45 card builds I see. I don't like that because I think that your best hands are you want to draw Moyi as much as possible, just access to Moyi, which you play 9 of. Because this card is just like resolving engage. You get to search follow-up, you get a draw, and you get a winnow anchor interruption on your opponent's turn through the Chijiao off of 1 card, and I want to draw that as often as possible. So yeah, clean 40 cards. Extra deck is extremely standard. 2 Chijiao, 2 Baxia, Draco Berserker, Cypherame Lord Omega. This is the one spot that kind of can be variable, but I think this is the best one because it offers utility. When you get Maximus, you can send this, and then you can, if you kill the DP, you can put it back. It's really strong. I never made it. I did play against 3 Invoke Dogmas, and so this did get sent, but it didn't really come up. But nothing else really would have come up either. So Cheng Ying, Baroness, Yazi, Chao Feng, 3 Monks. Yeah, 3 Monk didn't come up. I made 3 Monk once, but it was the wrong play anyway. So yeah, it didn't really matter. I was losing that game either way. I'll explain. Yes, I did a Shaman and the Draco Masters. It was against Eldritch. I didn't realize that this only popped effect monsters, so I was trying to pop his field full of Eldritch traps to stop him from making Link summons the following turn. Only to find out that this only pops effect monsters. So yeah, 3 Monk in that case never came up, but comes up in testing a lot. I think that 3 Monk is definitely correct. This 15 card extra is super standard. I think that a lot of people are on these exact 15 cards, and I wouldn't change it. Side deck, 3 Nib, 1 Droll, 2 Dark Ruler No Mores. I only had room for 2. This was kind of the spot in my side deck that kept changing a lot. I never drew this card, so I can't really say anything about it too much. But I tested Gamma over Nib, and I really disliked it. I would draw the driver, or I draw multiple Gammas, and then it was just terrible because I'm just playing with 1 less card. Or I draw Gamma post turn 1. I draw it off Moyi, and it's just dead. Any grind games, I draw it. And it's just really, I didn't like it. And also, Nib is a really good card to decide going first in the mirror match, so it gives me more to decide going first in the mirror. So yeah, I definitely did not like Gamma. Really have liked Nib in testing. I drew it once in the mirror, and it didn't work out. So yeah, I didn't really draw Nib other than that. Droll, the 3rd Droll is kind of necessary just for combo decks. Droll was great all weekend. Yeah, 3 Cosmics. This was excellent in outing There Can Be Only One. Harpy's Feather Duster, and then the best card in my side deck, Red Reboot. I Red rebooted 2-dimensional barriers, so that's huge, and a Schism. Yeah, Red Reboot is amazing. I definitely drew it way more often than I should have. I believe I drew it actually 5 times during the tournament. The 5th time I didn't even use it, but yeah, there were 4 games where I drew this and just clapped my opponent, so I made a sack. But in return, I also had 3-dimensional barrier and Imperial Order, and I drew none of them the entire tournament. So these went in almost every single match going when I would go first post game 1, and I never drew a single one. So, but that's fine. That's gonna happen. That's kind of what happened in this game. Is there's that luck factor. I drew the Red Reboot a lot instead, so happy about that. But yeah, I don't think I'd change anything about the list, being honest. I think I just got unlucky to tiebreakers. My first loss, I played poorly both games. I was just kind of out of it. I'll go through my matchups super quickly. Round 1, I played the Swordsoul Mirror 2-0. Round 2 is Virtual World 2-0. That match was, I just drew the absolute stones 2 games in a row. That was kind of that was one of those matches where I just got really lucky going second. 3 was the Cyberse Scythelock Eldritch deck. I beat that 2-1. 4 was Swordsoul 0-2. I misplayed both games. There's no guarantee I was winning either of them if I played if I didn't do the misplays that I caught. But nonetheless, yeah, I played poorly. I was just out of it. I hadn't eaten. So yeah, lost to Swordsoul there. Round 5 was Birds 2-1, and then Swordsoul 0-2. That one, my opponent just opened kind of crazy both games. My hands were a little bit awkward. They weren't great. They weren't like terrible. Yeah, he just drew better than me. Yeah, there wasn't too much I could do there. But again, yeah, that's something that's just gonna happen. That was not really in my control. That's gonna happen every tournament, right? Is something's gonna be like that. So I did have one loss, and I'll chalk that up to misplays, and then one loss. It's gonna that your opponent just draws a lot better than you in the mirror match. Happens. Round 7, Invoke Dogma 2-0. Round 8, Invoke Dogma 2-0, and round 9, Invoke Dogma 2-1. So I played 3 of them in a row for my last 3 rounds of Swiss Day 1. Yeah, took care of all of them. Outed the TC Boo with Cosmic Cyclone. I rebooted one of them on the Schism. He searched Schism and Punishment. Didn't have the field spell face up, so red reboot got in there heavily. Yeah, and then round 10 was the Melfi Tri-Brigade deck, and I won that 2-0. I was really proud of game 1. He went first. I drew 0 hand traps, and he had 5 interruptions, and I played through it all and set up my own board and ended up winning that game. And then, yeah, in game 2, I just clapped him. I just drew insane. It happens. And then round 11 was Bird 2-0. So yeah, 3 Swordsoul, 3 Invoke Dogma, 2 Bird, a Virtual World, an Eldritch, and a Tri-Brigade Melfi were my matchups. But yeah, really unfortunate that I didn't make top cut. I felt really good about the deck though. And I honestly think everything performed how it was supposed to, and in the end it just didn't work out, just because of tiebreakers. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.